Welcome to AI World TV, your go-to destination for everything artificial intelligence. Discover the captivating landscape of AI, where advanced technology finds real-life application. Subscribe to AI World TV for webzine articles, reports, podcasts, videos, live events, and latest trends. Hear from top industry leaders and discover how AI is transforming industries and our daily lives.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking on a really critical analysis, looking at excerpts from the AI World Journal. And they describe this foundational shift in how we have to view artificial intelligence now. You need to forget that whole phase where AI was, a fascinating lab experiment or the newest startup toy. The core thesis here, and really the mission for our deep dive today, is to unpack the reality that AI isn't coming. It's here. It has fundamentally transitioned to become critical national infrastructure.
That transformation is, it's complete. And that's the defining reality of this 2025 era. We're not talking about software apps anymore. We're looking at systemic intelligence that's embedded in the absolute bedrock of the global economy.
So things like
complex financial modeling, global supply chains, defense and threat detection systems, and this is a huge one, managing our fragile energy grids. These are systems where failure, it doesn't just mean an outage, it means national instability.
And the sources, they give a name to the people managing all this. They call them the architects of AI. And these architects aren't just, data scientists writing code in a basement.
No, not at all. They're the innovators. They're the people building the massive physical compute infrastructure, the researchers defining the limits of what's possible, and crucially, the executives and policymakers who are now defining how this new intelligence is governed.
Okay, so our goal today is to give you a clear map of this new strategic terrain. We're going to unpack 4 major shifts that the source material really highlights.
Right. First, how investment and regulation are fundamentally changing for these mission-critical systems. Second, the harsh reality of the geopolitical choke points that are now defining who has power. Third, this new challenge of governing genuinely autonomous agentic systems. And finally, what that means for national strategy, the mandates required to secure the future.
Let's start with that systemic transition then, because this feels like where the risk just exploded, moving from something manageable to something almost existential. The defining mark of 2025 is this move away from simple proofs of concept to the widespread, large-scale deployment of mission-critical AI.
Right. We've seen foundation models, the ones that generate text or code. They've matured so quickly into these multimodal platforms.
And it happened incredibly fast.
Blazingly fast. And that speed is what allows these AI systems to move from just, passively processing information to demonstrating real operational autonomy. They can plan, they can reason, and they can execute really complex multi-step workflows without a human holding their hand the whole time.
So we should be thinking less about a fancy chatbot.
And more about an automated logistics agent that's coordinating shipments across 3 continents, or an asset management agent that is dynamically shifting billions in capital based on real-time data.
Okay, so if the tech is that capable, if it's truly autonomous, where is the smart money going? Our source is very clear on this. It says value creation has completely shifted away from that foundational model layer.
It had to. It absolutely had to. In the last couple of years, the market just got saturated with these incredibly sophisticated, often open source foundation models. These tools, they effectively commoditize the base layer of intelligence. So why would an investor sink billions into building another generic model that's just marginally better than what's already out there for free or cheap?
That's a powerful point. If the base model is a commodity, the value has to be somewhere else. It has to be upstream.
Exactly. Investors now, they have to prioritize the specialized integration and application layer. The market isn't rewarding general invention anymore. It's rewarding execution. So that means the investment focus is now squarely on building secure data pipelines, advanced orchestration platforms, and creating these vertical-specific agents that can actually deliver measurable, secure, reliable ROI in regulated industries. Think healthcare, finance, advanced manufacturing. It's all about secure application, not just raw power.
Okay, let's dig into what that shift means for regulators. Because if these systems are mission-critical and they're operating on their own, the old policy frameworks, which, they focused on things like data privacy or bias in, like a recommendation engine, they seem totally inadequate now.
Completely inadequate. Policymakers can't afford to regulate based on a model's capabilities anymore. They can't just say, we're going to regulate this version of an image generator. They have to move to governing the behavior and accountability of these autonomous agentic systems, especially when they're operating in high-risk environments. The source really stresses this. An untrustworthy or opaque system is now an unmanageable regulatory and economic liability at a systemic level.
We're not talking about a flawed movie recommendation.
No, we're talking about potential grid failure or a flash market collapse. The stakes are completely different.
That really clarifies things. The worry isn't the code, it's the consequence of its failure. Okay, so we've established the risk is about behavior, but the ability to even build these systems, that relies on a much more physical reality. And that takes us straight into the geopolitical battleground of the supply chain.
That is the perfect segue. Because this entire revolution, it has a physical choke chain. And that chain is where hardware, software, and data all converge. The primary choke point, the real heart of global AI competition, is the total reliance on advanced semiconductors, specifically high-end GPUs, and just as important, the hyper-specialized manufacturing equipment you need to make them.
And that capacity, that IP, it's all incredibly concentrated.
Heavily concentrated. Control over this tiny, tiny segment of the global supply chain is a critical strategic asset, and it's held by just a handful of nations and companies. This creates this immense geopolitical fragility, and it's why we see this tension playing out. You have nations using export controls as a strategic weapon, while other nations are pouring massive resources into just trying to achieve domestic self-sufficiency. This fight for control over the silicon is really the defining technological battle of our time.
So if compute is the new oil or the new strategic minerals, what does that mean for a nation that has the money, has the research talent, but doesn't have that domestic cutting-edge manufacturing?
It means they are structurally vulnerable, they're dependent, and it doesn't matter how much money they have. Access to high-end compute, the raw ability to train or run the most complex systems, is without a doubt the modern equivalent of capital. If you don't have the machines, you can't compete. Not economically, not militarily, not scientifically. It's an insurmountable barrier.
And this is where it gets even more interesting because that essential hardware, it depends on another physical reality that's starting to crack under the pressure. Energy.
Absolutely. The geopolitical choke point has a second, often overlooked layer, and that is power. The immense and constantly growing energy consumption required for AI makes securing stable, clean power a new, fundamental strategic requirement.
The sources gave some really striking real-world examples that bring this crisis home. One mentioned that the growth of data centers is now seriously draining global water supplies for cooling,
which creates huge local political friction. And it leads directly to policy intervention. I mean, the source's citation about Ireland is staggering. Ireland, a major European data hub, is now requiring new data centers to install on-site generation, or battery systems capable of meeting their entire electricity demand.
Right.
That's not just, a green policy. That signals that AI compute is now in direct competition with residential industrial power. That is a clear infrastructural crisis point.
Think about that for a second. AI is now forcing national energy policy to change just to stabilize the grid against this one industry's constant draw. That really highlights the shift. AI is no longer just a cloud service. It's a physical infrastructure demand that has to be managed at a national level.
It totally redefines the strategic importance of energy. You simply cannot talk about AI supremacy without talking about electricity generation and grid stability.
Okay, let's pivot back to the systems themselves, which we said are becoming autonomous. 2025 is really marked by the operationalization of these agentic AIs. Systems that can define their own sub-goals and adapt without constant human checks.
And this leap, this jump to what you might call governed autonomy, creates what the sources call a significant accountability gap.
An accountability gap.
Yeah. I mean, if you have an agent operating autonomously, like say an automated financial agent managing market liquidity, and it makes a critical error that destabilizes a small bank, just tracing the fault back through millions of lines of dynamic logs becomes a massive forensic and legal nightmare.
Who's responsible? Is it the human operator who was on shift? The team that trained the model 6 months ago? The data vendor whose corrupted data started the whole mess?
Exactly. Establishing legal liability, fault, and redress becomes incredibly complex. And if you don't have that clarity, public confidence just collapses. So this means we need entirely new infrastructure, one focused not just on performance, but on oversight and forensic traceability.
Which means the architects have to build governance right into the code from the very beginning. So what do these robust agent governance frameworks actually look like?
They're built on three interlocking technical components. The first is what they call ethical guardrails and
You are listening to the AI World Podcast, your trusted source for the latest innovations, insights, and trends in artificial intelligence, blockchain, fintech, and decentralized technologies. Each episode features expert interviews, engaging discussions, and in-depth analysis of how AI transforms industries worldwide. Stay ahead of the curve with the latest articles and exclusive reports from the AI World Journal, covering everything from emerging technologies to industry breakthroughs. For more news, global events, and access to AI World Society circle gatherings, visit us at aiworld.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to stay informed, stay connected, and be part of the AI revolution with AI World Lounge.
boundaries.
Thank you for listening.
These are fundamental code-level constraints. Hard-coded limits that prevent the agent from taking unsafe, biased, or non-compliant actions. For example, an energy agent being physically prevented from overdrawing power beyond a set threshold.
So it's like a digital safety fuse built right into the system's DNA.
Precisely. The second piece, which is critical for that accountability gap, is audit trails and explainability. This is basically the agent's flight data recorder. It mandates comprehensive logging of every single tool call, every reasoning step, every final decision. This detailed log is absolutely essential for liability, allowing regulators to trace back exactly how a critical error occurred.
It sounds a massive technical burden, but one you can't do without if you want public trust.
You can't. And finally, the third piece ensures we don't lose the person in the loop. Human oversight anchors. These are just explicit checkpoints. They're built into workflows to force a human review or a sign-off before a high-risk action is taken. The agent might manage 95% of the process, but the big decisions committing major capital, taking irreversible physical action, that requires a human to step in and take responsibility.
Okay, moving from those technical frameworks to the national response. This brings us to what the sources call the Strategic Compute Investment Mandate. And they frame it as basically non-negotiable for future competitiveness.
Right. If compute is the new capital and the supply chains are as fragile as we've discussed, then AI processing power has to be treated as a national strategic asset, just like a strategic energy reserve. And this mandate requires several big actions at once.
And Action 1 seems to be about democratizing access to the hardware itself. How does the government stop a few big tech companies from locking up all the compute power?
By fully funding and operationalizing things like the National AI Research Resource, or NARR, the point isn't just to buy chips. It's to provide secure, democratized access to massive GPU clusters. This is vital for empowering startups, academic labs, smaller research teams, people who could never afford this kind of compute on their own. It broadens the whole innovation ecosystem.
And alongside that, there's a recognition that some work, especially national security work, is just too sensitive for a commercial cloud.
Absolutely. That requires dedicated investment in purpose-built, secure national security AI clouds, GovCloud. These need to be physically and digitally isolated environments staffed by highly specialized talent for handling classified and mission-critical AI workloads. When we're talking about national defense, reliance on commercial infrastructure is just an unacceptable risk.
So that handles the immediate need for sovereign access, but for long-term supremacy, you have to look beyond today's silicon, which we've established is fragile. What's the mandate for next-generation R&D?
This is where we need aggressive, sustained funding into truly transformative non-silicon computing. We're talking specifically about research in neuromorphic and optical computing. What they're trying to do here is to fundamentally replace the power-hungry architecture that computers have used for 80 years with a new paradigm, one that mimics the brain or uses light instead of electrons.
Which promises not just huge gains in speed, but critically in energy efficiency. It could potentially break those constraints we talked about earlier. That feels like the only long-term way out of the energy crunch.
It is the strategic move, and that's why the mandate also includes funding for the specialized infrastructure needed for these future systems. Things like high-efficiency cooling and dedicated clean energy sources to support them. We can't build a new technology just to run into the same energy wall.
And the final piece of the mandate, maybe the most crucial one long-term, is the human element. You can't run any of this without specialized talent.
And that talent has to be cultivated at home and quickly. The source stresses funding specialized training programs for not just AI modeling, but for infrastructure operations, GPU cluster management, high bandwidth networking. These are the specialized workforces that keep this critical infrastructure running.
And what about getting the best minds into government service, where the really critical governance and security work has to happen?
That requires something structured, like a national AI talent corps, a program designed to actively recruit and retain top AI engineers and researchers into government service. This is to ensure that people writing the rules and managing the national defense systems actually deeply understand the technology they're governing. You can't regulate what you don't comprehend.
It's so clear this is a multidisciplinary effort. I mean, you look at the list of these architects, the source highlights. You've got Sam Altman representing model development, Jensen Huang, who basically controls the compute hardware engine, and someone like Timnit Gebru representing the absolute necessity of ethical and governance structures. It really drives home the diversity of expertise you need. It's not one type of genius. It's this confluence of builders, ethicists, and leaders.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, the decisions being made right now in 2025 about governance, supply chains, strategic investment, they're not just tech policy decisions. These are high-stakes choices that are going to determine the economic, military, and ethical trajectory of the world for decades to come. The transformation is complete. It is irreversible.
And the ultimate success of this era, it won't be measured just by the power of the tech, how fast the chips are or how clever the agents are. It's going to be measured by the responsibility and the foresight with which these leaders, these architects, address accountability and navigate this intense geopolitical competition. They are, right now, designing the foundational intelligence for the 21st century.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider, and this builds directly on the source material we've discussed. Given the severe supply chain risks of silicon and the massive unsustainable power demands of current GPUs, how might a successful sovereign breakthrough in non-silicon computing meromorphic or optical fundamentally reshape the geopolitical balance of power? And how might it instantly redefine the very concept of compute capital over the next decade? Something for you to chew on as you consider the future of national strategy.
The future of artificial intelligence is unfolding. And it's happening at AI World Week, the flagship global event for innovation, collaboration, and transformation. This flagship global AI event is designed to connect visionary leaders, trailblazing entrepreneurs, and influential thinkers to explore the endless possibilities of AI. Experience groundbreaking technology that redefines industries and inspires progress. Join thought-provoking discussions on ethical AI, digital equity, and the transformative role of technology in our world. Build meaningful connections that catalyze innovation and drive impact. AI World Week is powered by AI World Society, a global movement dedicated to advancing AI responsibly and ensuring it serves humanity. Together, we're shaping a smarter, more inclusive, and equitable future. Continue your journey beyond the event with the AI World Journal, offering expert insights, in-depth analysis, and the latest trends shaping the AI landscape. This is your opportunity to lead, to innovate, and to transform the world with AI. AI World Week. We invite you to join us and embrace the AI revolution.